Please support this channel by clicking on the subscribe button. Assalamu guys, Irfan back again with another video, and today we are going to be looking at the 10 most commonly used functions in Microsoft Excel. Now these, in my opinion, are one of the most commonly used and also one of the most useful and helpful functions in Microsoft Excel. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and prepared a list of 10 such functions which are commonly used, and B, most useful and make your job a lot easier. Okay, so the first is the sum function. Second would be the average, then count. This counts the number of cells which have numbers in them, and then count A, which counts the number of cells which have alphanumeric, like letters and numbers. The concatenate, that is used to combine two strings together. The if command, that makes you do conditional work. For example, you can have if a certain condition is true, then do this, or if a certain condition is not true, then do that. So that would be the if function. The count if, this actually counts the number of occurrences or number of cells that have values in them based on a certain criteria. VLOOKUP is a lookup function that grabs a certain value based on a match found in the index column. The drop-down list, you can make drop-down list to make your job easier to do data entry. And the sum if, which is sort of like the count if, but instead of just counting, it adds them up. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. What I've done is I've got another sheet here, the data sheet. This sheet here, this is the topics that we'll be covering, the 10 functions that we'll be looking at today. And this sheet here, this is, I've used this data several times previously in other videos, and essentially this is the sales ledger from a company that supplies products to fast food joints and pizza parlors in the New York state area. And this basically lists down the sales by a dealer, by customer, the products that were bought, what date the product was bought, what the value of the order was, how much it cost, the goods that we sold, how much they cost us. So the difference between the revenue and the cost of goods sold obviously would be your margin, the financial year and the sales month and the sales quarter, and the person who, the salesperson that sale went through in the sales area. So this is, like I said, I have used this data several times in my previous videos, and we are going to go ahead and use the same sheet again. And the 10 functions that we are going to be talking about today, which are these guys here, we will be using this data to explain the use of these functions. Okay, so let's get started. Now the first function that we have is the sum function. Okay, so I'm just going to switch to this sheet here, and let's put a heading, sum. Oops, not the sun, but the sum. Okay, the way you do that is the syntax is one way to do that would be sum, and I'm going to store to the sheet that has data. And what we're going to do is we're going to be adding up for example, the revenue column. So if we want the sum of revenues for the first 3 entries, one way to do that would be click on the first cell, put a comma, click on the second cell, comma, and click on the third cell, and you close parentheses and hit enter. Okay, so it gives you 1.46 million is what the sale is, and if you were to add them up like that, see, you get 1.46 million. The other way to do that, the same sum function, would be sum, and let's switch over to the data sheet. Say for example you want to do the first 3. I mean, you could do more than it's 3, but I'm just for this example I'm just using 3 entries. So what you can do is you can highlight them, and if you notice, it automatically puts a colon, so it's E2 colon E4. So this gives you a range. Okay, instead of you putting commas and you clicking on each cell, this is basically a range of cells that you want to add up. This is exceptionally useful if you got a long list, and instead of having to because this is just 3 we're talking about here, but say for example if there were 100, it would be extremely tedious that if you were to click on each individually and separate them by commas. So this way you could do a range and hit enter. It gives you the same value. Now the third way to do that is if you were to say for example if you want the sum of this whole column, and if as more data is added to the bottom of the sheet, you want that to be taken care of also. So just click on the top of the column here. See how I move my mouse pointer here, the letter E turns greenish teal color, meaning if I were to click on this column now, the whole column will get highlighted. So let's see if I go ahead and click. See how it says E colon E. You don't have the numbers anymore. As if you remember, the previous example was E2 colon E4. So E2 to E4. Now this is just E to E colon E, meaning the whole column. Okay, and close parentheses, and obviously this time the value is going to be a whole lot different because this is the sum of the whole column. So that's essentially your sum function. Okay, so we have covered sum. So let's just go ahead and highlight this and move forward. The average. Now this average function, as everybody would know, average is you add up a bunch of numbers and you divide by the number of numbers and you get the average, the mean. So this is exactly what the average does. So if we were to say for example do the average of the first 3 revenue entries, the average would be 488,127. So let's go ahead and see how we would do that. Okay, now one way to do the average. Now same in the case as in the sum. What you can do is you can click on the first cell, put a comma, second comma, third, and close parentheses, hit enter. It gives you the average. Now just like in the sum, instead of putting commas, what you can do is you can highlight the 3 and close parentheses, so it says E2 colon E4, so everything between E2 and E4, enter, you still get the same value. Now if you were to calculate the average of all the revenue items entries, like we did in the sum, you move the mouse pointer up here when the letter turns, the color changes, and you click, it says E colon E, meaning the whole column, close parentheses, enter, and this is the average of of all the revenue items. So it's 526,975, and if you were to highlight this, Excel will actually do a quick calculation for you down here. So that was your average function. Okay, so let's highlight that and move along. Now we've got count. What that does is it's going to count the number of cells that have numbers in them. Okay, so for example, if you want to add up how many entries you have, say for example, we know it's going to be 41, okay, because Excel does the count for me. But if you want to have Excel calculate the number of cells which has numbers like this, the way you do that, okay, so count, go here, and if you, I'm just going to, in fact, let me just go back here. Let me just quickly show you something. I'm just going to double click on this. So it says value 1, comma, value 2. So essentially what we were doing up here and here, you could separate them by commas, but let's not do that. We have done that enough time. So what we'll do is we'll just click on the cell, on the column, on the letter E, so the whole column gets highlighted. So you got E colon E, and you close parentheses, and you hit enter, and gives you 41. So if right now we've got 41 entries. Okay, so let's do a quick check. Let's go to the bottom here, and let's add a number here. Okay, so now instead of 41, it should show 42. Okay, now if this had ABC in front of it, let's see what happens now. It just only shows 41, because now this is no longer a pure number. It's got letters in front of it. Okay, so the count function only counts cells which has purely numbers in it. If you have any special characters or any letters in it, any alphanumeric characters in it, it will ignore that. It will only count cells which have pure numbers in. So let's just delete this. So you're back to where we were. We got 42. Okay, so that is essentially your count function. So let's move forward. Now count A. Now what count A does is the opposite of count. Is count was pure numbers. This is alphanumeric. Okay. So if we were to do a count A on the revenue column, okay. Now what's going to happen is, let's see. Let's go ahead and do it so you can see what happens. And I'm going to switch to the data, and I'm going to click on this and highlight the whole column and close parentheses. Okay, you've got 42. Now, why do you have 42? And over here you had 41? Because when you did count, it ignored this heading column, heading row, where the heading of revenue, and it just counted the numbers down. So it just ignored that first line because it's got letters in it. But count A counts everything, letters, numbers, everything. So it counted this cell also, and that is why you have 42. All right. So we have covered count A. Now concatenate. This is one of my favorite. Let's do it over here. Okay. Now what it does is, see how almost all of them have the same functionality built in of being you being able to put in more values, more parameters. I shouldn't say values, separated by commas. Okay. So, like I said, what concatenate does is it adds two strings together. So if you go to the data sheet, say for example we want to add the 3 products, just the names. So we click here, put a comma, French fries, comma, pizza, and I'm going to close parentheses. See how it combined the tomato ketchup, French fries, pizza into one. And you can get really fancy. You could say, for example, put a space in like that. So what it did was, let's go back here, it took the contents of this cell, and okay, put it here, then it put put a few spaces, then took the contents of this cell, and then took the content of this cell. So tomato ketchup, few spaces, French fries, no space, and then pizza. So tomato ketchup, few spaces, French fries, no space, and pizza. So as you notice, what it has done is it has combined these three texts together into one. And you can do some pretty fancy stuff with Concatenate like that. And hopefully in a future video I will show you different tricks that you can do with Concatenate. Okay, let's move along. If. Now, like I said, this is a conditional statement that allows you to do certain actions based on the value, based on a condition. Say, for example, if you want to say, if today is Tuesday, then you have a class at 9 o'clock. Otherwise, your class begins at 10 o'clock. That type of thing. Okay. So, how would you use the if? In a spreadsheet in Excel. Let's see. Let's go to the data sheet here. Say, for example, what we want to do is we want to add these three up if product is ketchup. Otherwise, if product is not ketchup, if take the revenue, add these three revenues up if all these three products were ketchup. Otherwise, just give a message that this is not. Otherwise, maybe what you could do is, let's see. I just want to make sure this is as simple as possible. Let's just do it with the first cell, and then we will do the three. I think that would be simpler. So what we'll do is we will say what display what the revenue is if this is pizza. Otherwise, display a 0. Okay. So let's do that first, and then I'll show you how you could do multiple ifs. Check for multiple conditions using an OR. You can add an OR to it or an AND. What OR does, if any of those, any one condition is true, then do this, otherwise do something else. And what AND does is, all these conditions need to be true, then do this. If any one is not true, then forget it, and then do the false condition. So, like I said, let's do the simple version first, and then we'll do the AND OR. So, because with the AND OR, we'll be able to do more than one cell. So let's do the first cell first, the simpler version first. What we'll do is, we'll see what the revenue is if this C2 is pizza. If C2 is not pizza, then put a 0. Okay, so let's do that first. If this is equal to pizza, then display the revenue. Otherwise, put a 0 there. Okay, so you see how it just showed a 0 because this cell says tomato ketchup and not pizza. Now, if this were to say pizza, it will grab the revenue. Okay, so let's change this back to tomato ketchup and see it goes back to 0. Now, let's do the interesting version. Let's do the OR. Okay, what we'll do is, we'll check if this is, say for example, tomato ketchup or pizza, display the revenue. Otherwise, display 0. Okay, so what we'll do is, if we put OR, this is equal to tomato ketchup, comma, this is equal to pizza, close parenthesis. Now what we've done is the first bracket is for the OR, and the second one sorry, for the if, and the second, this bracket here is for the OR. So we close this bracket here, put a comma, and then what we do is value if true. If either this is tomato ketchup or this is pizza, what should it do? It should give us the revenue. Okay. Now, if both, if this is neither ketchup nor pizza, display a 0, and you close parenthesis, hit enter, it grabs you the revenue. Because if you see here, this is tomato ketchup. This may not be pizza, but it is tomato ketchup. So one, we said, is if it's ketchup or pizza, either way, any of those two is true, grab the revenue. If it is neither ketchup nor is it pizza, put a 0. So if this was not ketchup, if this was French fries, for example, this should display a 0, because now it's not equal to ketchup, it's not equal to pizza. Okay, let's set this back to ketchup. Now the third version, that is with an AND. Now, like I said, what the AND does is you can have multiple conditions, and for the AND, all the conditions need to be true to for Excel to go one way, and if any one of those is false, the Excel will go the other way. As opposed to the OR, if you remember, we just did OR. Any one condition needs to be true. In AND, all conditions need to be true. So what we'll do is we put an and what we want to do is we want to make sure this is equal to ketchup, okay, and maybe this guy is equal to pizza. So what we are saying is this gotta be ketchup. This cell here is gotta be pizza. If it is, give this revenue. Otherwise, 0. So now we do know, if you go back to the data, this cell here is tomato ketchup. This cell here is pizza. Now, if either this was not ketchup or this was not pizza, meaning both conditions of this must be ketchup, this must be pizza, is not true, is either of these one is false or both are false, it will go the false route. Okay, so let's change this pizza into French fries, see what happens. What we've done is we just made this false, and now it should give you a 0 because this is no longer pizza. This may be true, but this is not true, and the AND requires the both to be true. Now I'm going to go back and make this pizza back into pizza, and I'm going to make this into pizza. Okay, now you would think that it would give you a revenue. No, but it would not. It would still give you a 0 because it still wants the first one to be ketchup, and the third is pizza. But if you make the first one pizza also, it still doesn't work because it's saying no, I want this to be ketchup. Okay, so that's the two, the simple if, the OR if, and the AND if. Okay, so we've done the if. Now we come to the Countif. Now, like I said before at the beginning when I was just going through this list, the Countif and the SUMIF are kind of similar. The Countif counts based on certain condition being true, and SUMIF sums up something based on some condition being true. So let's first do the Countif. Okay, so oops, sorry. And with the Countif, we've got two variants. We've got the Countif and we've got the Countifs. The only difference is COUNTIF can only have one condition. It only checks for one condition. COUNTIFs checks for multiple conditions. You can have, if condition 1 matches, condition 2 matches, condition 3 matches, all 3 are true, then go ahead and count this. If any one of them is not true, then don't count that cell. Okay, so like I said, if and ifs with an S, they're the same. The only difference is the COUNTIF only checks for one condition being true. COUNTIFs can check for multiple conditions to be true, and it requires all conditions to be true. So let's go ahead with the simpler version now. Like I said, the other one is just an extension of it. So COUNTIF, and let's go to this sheet. Let's see. Let me go back here. It says range and then criteria. What does it need to be counting? So let's give this as the whole range. The product column is a range, and now we need to give it the criteria. Okay, so let's see. What I want to do is find the number of times pizza shows up here. So it's going to count the number of entries of pizza, like for example 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth. Okay, hit enter. 12. So let's see if that is true. We've got 1, got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So pizza showed up in our products 12 times. Now if this last pizza, say for example that was not pizza, that was French fries, now your COUNTIF should report 11. There you go. Okay, so let's just change this back to pizza. So that's essentially how you would do the COUNTIF. Like I said, if the COUNTIFs with an S, all that does is it checks for multiple conditions. Say for example, if you say product should be pizza and salesperson needs to be Bob. Let's go ahead and do that. COUNTIFs. See how it says criteria range 1, because now it's expecting more than 1. So criteria range 1 is the products column. The first criteria is pizza. Now it's saying criteria range 2. So we'll select the salesperson, and the criteria is Bob. Now let's see how many entries do we have. How many times did Bob sell pizza? None. 0. Okay, let's see who actually did sell pizza. John has, okay. You know John has sold pizza. So if we were to change this formula, instead of Bob, let's check for John. 12. Now let's see. We have pizza, it was John. Then we have pizza, it was John. And then we have pizza, it was John. Okay, so it looks like pizza was only sold by John. So let's make it a little interesting. Let's make this into Bob. Let's give this sale of pizza to Bob. So now it should report 11, because there's one less sale of pizza attributed to John. Okay, excuse me, I'm just gonna grab a drink of water. So I'm just gonna Control Z and go back. So that was the COUNTIF. So if you notice, here we were able to check for 2 conditions. So we have covered the COUNTIF. Oops. Now VLOOKUP. Now if you remember, I have done a couple of videos just dedicated on VLOOKUP, but because it's one of the most widely used, one of the most commonly used, one of the most useful functions in Excel, we're going to do it again. What VLOOKUP does is, let's grab this sheet here. Say for example, what we want to do is, we want to find the first occurrence of pizza in the products, okay? And we see what the order date is, if that's what we want to do, okay? So we are doing VLOOKUP, okay? So is equal to, see how if you just start typing in Excel is smart enough to understand that once I've typed VL, now the only function it has built in whose first two characters are VL is VLOOKUP. So it just suggests you that. It says lookup value, table array, column index, number range lookup. So first is the lookup value. So what are we looking up? We are looking at pizza. Where are we looking at? What we want to do is, we want to, in this column, we want to find pizza, and for the first occurrence of pizza, we want to find the corresponding each order date. So we'll highlight these two columns, comma, column index. So the first column is this is column number 2. So we put 2, comma, and true gives you an approximate match, and false gives you an exact match. Essentially what that does is, for the approximate match, as long as, if say for example, if you got pizza and you got pizzas, it's going to think, well, they're the same thing. So if you had, instead of French fries here, it said you had pizzas with an S, it would grab that because it's close enough, okay? But with an exact match, if you have pizza and pizzas, it's going to ignore the pizzas and only grab pizza, okay? So that's important. The second thing important in the approximate match is they need to be in alphabetical order, okay? From what you're grabbing, they need to be in order. If you're grabbing it from a list, that is, okay? Now hit, but in this case, what we are doing is, we need to just grab the pizza, and the first entry of pizza, the order date was 24th of March 2013. Hit enter. Now you may think this looks weird, but all we need to do is change the format. It's showing you the date in number format, and if you change it to a date format, there you go, 24th of March 2013. It grabbed that date for you, okay? So that essentially is the VLOOKUP. Now the next topic is how to create a drop-down list. Now essentially let's just put the heading here first. Now essentially what that does is, say for example, in this cell, the person who is using this spreadsheet has to enter the product, tomato ketchup, pizza or French fries, and instead of making that person type that in every time and risk making a typographical spelling mistake or what have you, why not make it easier for that person and have that person select the item from a drop-down list? So how would you do that? So let's go ahead and see that. You click on data, then you see here data validation. You click on this triangle here, pulls it down, and data validation. Now it says validation criteria. Allow any value? No, we want it to be coming from a list. Now this source, what this means is, what values do you want this list to have? So let's go to data. This is the 3 values that we would want: ketchup, fries, and pizza, okay? And you click on OK, and now you see whenever you're on this cell, you get this drop down, and you can just select ketchup, or you can select French fries, select pizza, okay? Now, what's really interesting is if you were to pair this with the VLOOKUP, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and do that. Is equal to VLOOKUP. Now, what we're looking up is this value, and we are grabbing the order date, just like we did earlier. And obviously, we need to change the format into date. Okay, so the first time pizza was ordered, the first entry of pizza that it finds is for the 24th of March 2013. French fries is 14th of March. Okay, so if we were to change this to French fries, see how that changed? So what you've done is you have made VLOOKUP lookup value as you know from the drop down list, and ketchup was ordered on 1st of February 2013. So let's check that out also. Tomato ketchup on the 1st of February. So instead of making that person sit here and type, what we did was made it a lot easier for that person, because that person can excuse me, can just pull the names from the drop down list. So that is your drop down list. That's how you create a drop down. Now the sum if, and like I had said at the beginning, sum if is similar to Countif. Countif counts based on a certain condition, sum if sums up based on a certain condition. And also like the Countif, which had two variants, the sum if, that's like the count if, which only checks for one criteria, and count ifs, which can have multiple criteria. The sum if sums up based on one criteria, and sum ifs sums up on multiple criteria. So let's see how we'll do that. Let's just do sum if first. Oops, sorry. Okay, now what we are doing is it's asking for the range. What you want to check? You're checking for the products. Okay, so this column here, and this needs to be pizza, and what are we adding up? We are adding up the revenue. Okay, and close parenthesis, 7.6 million. Now let's see if let's check this manually. Okay, now if you remember, there were 12 entries for pizza, and they were all sold by John. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So here's your 12 entries, and they add up to 7.6 million, and that's exactly what this is saying. Okay, now if any one of these, if say for example this was not pizza, this was French fries, 990,000 would be taken off from the 7.6 million. So it's gone down by that amount. Okay, let's change this back to pizza. Now let's check out the sum ifs option. Okay, now in this case what it does is it asks you for the sum range up front, instead of in this in the sum if it asks you for at the end. Now the sum if, it asks you up front. So what we are doing is we are adding up the revenue, criteria range 1, products, and products is oops sorry is pizza, and salesperson is John. Okay, and we hit enter. So we're getting the same value. Let's put the columns. Okay, now if like I said, there were 12 entries for pizza, all by John. So let's see if we change this to French fries, it would go down by 990,000, which it did. Okay. Now, I'm going to change this back to pizza, but I'm going to change this John to Bob. Now, if you remember how I said for the sum ifs, both criteria need to be true. So the products must be pizza, salesperson must be John. So in this last entry, it was not John, it was Bob. So this 990 would be taken off. See how over here there was only one, it was only checking for pizza, so it added up all the 12. Here it was only adding up the first 11, not the 12th one, because the salesperson is not John. Okay. So that's your 10 most commonly most useful Microsoft Excel functions. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please kindly give it a thumbs up, and please also support this channel by subscribing. Thank you. Please support this channel by clicking on the subscribe button.